The NTSB investigates accidents and creates marine accident reports and marine accident briefs. They've recently renamed them all marine incident reports. They could be 10 pages or 110 pages long. They apply the principles and elements of a good ridge resource management practice. They ask 5 questions. Is there a procedure? Was it followed? If yes, why did the procedure not prevent the accident? If not followed, why not? And if there was no procedure, well, should there be? They are always seeking the truth, and there could be 5 versions of the truth. The VDR, the AIS, there's VTS recordings, there's eyewitnesses, and possibly a pilot's PPU. And their mantra is, if it's not recorded, it didn't happen. They've gotten sophisticated with reconstructing accidents. They have subpoena power. Cell phones, PPUs, Fitbits, Apple Watches, they're all fair game. Your cell phone provider could be subpoenaed as well. They can usually determine what happened in one day. As to why it happened, it usually takes about a year. Here's our first case. The Shandong Fuan, a 750-foot by 105 wide bulker at 44-foot draft and loaded with coal bound for sea. So as we look at these briefs and reports, we get this peek into the behaviors and practices of pilots and bridge teams. Some of these practices work and some don't. It's easy for us to be armchair mariners as we critique them. Just remember, we were not there in that moment. Personal dynamics on the bridge, the nonverbal communications, they might not be detected by a VDR or closed-circuit TV cameras or in the face-to-face interviews after the fact. Let's begin by looking for a good MPIX. Let's look for a fit pilot, risk assessment, management. Did an error chain start the moment the pilot set foot on the bridge? Maybe there was a pre-existing condition. Due to the high river, this pilot boarded the vessel at midnight and was required to stay on board as long as the tugs were pushing to keep it alongside the berth in these high river conditions. It's a requirement of the terminal and the river pilots. So it wasn't until a little past 0600 when the captain and pilot were on the bridge and with their tugs fast started singling up. So at this point, the Doppler is showing 3 to 4 knots of current at the dock. They discussed the plan, topping around or turning bow to port a little off the dock and heading out to sea. Traffic wasn't an issue. Everything worked fine on the ship. The pilot did state later that he specifically asked this captain to disable any load limiters so that he had full range of propulsion. So all 3 of these tugs are conventional. Only the one on the port bow is fast. There's one midship and there's one on the port quarter. So there's a derrick barge in the berth just astern of this ship, their starboard side too. This comes into play as they undock. Let's look at the VDR. Once the lines are let go, these times are in GMT, so that's 0623. What's not mentioned in the NTSB report is this frustration we see of the pilot in communicating with the Chinese captain. Now, about that derrick barge, in a normal undocking maneuver at this high river stage, he would come off the dock about 50 feet and flop around. Because of the barge, he wanted to move the ship ahead, maybe a ship length, but farther off the pier, almost 150 feet off. So let's see if that affected the outcome of this. Let's look at its positions. So you saw there in the VDR, are we full ahead yet? Yeah, says the Chinese captain. So 0630 through 0634, all ahead bells. Broadside to the river at about 0634, pilot orders stop engine and commences multiple astern bells, dead slow astern, slow, half, then full in a matter of 60 seconds. He's walking through the bells, and the speed over ground is 2.8 knots and increasing. There's one tug on the port quarter pushing. There's that port bow tug backing alongside. And what's unusual about this is this pilot had one of those tugs shift to the starboard bow to help the bow around. So in his interview, the pilot told them about that 50 feet off the dock, but this time it's 150 feet off the dock. He likes to do that and then get sternway to get the pivot point aft and allow the current to push the bow around as the tug aft pushes, is what he told the investigators. So think about that. Now the ship's getting sternway. Is the pivot point really moving aft in this 4+ knot current? Doesn't the ship need more than 4 knots of sternway over the ground for that pivot point to move aft? Well, let's look at what from this Ergon St. James Terminal pier that captured it. This is about 0634. We're about, not sure what he's doing. Doesn't look like he's alongside. This ship is now increasing its headway. The engine is full astern. That port bow tug is just visible backing. And contact was about 0637. Here's this tug saying, I'm backing all I got. And that tug on the starboard bow is bailing, as he says. So this is emergency ship handling now, full astern. Any use to the anchors? No. There's crew on the bow, and you will see from this slide to the next name that crew ran aft to avoid this impending strike. And here's the moment of impact. Look at that kinetic energy. Mooring dolphin stood its ground. That's around 80,000 tons of displacement, moving at 3+ knots. And yes, it was damaged in the millions of dollars, but that main mooring platform held. Well, in this instance, the investigators asked the pilot to fill out this 96-hour work rest history. And we can see that time of incident, meal, sleep, free time, on watch, off watch. Coast Guard determined and the NTSB determined that this pilot had 3 to 4 hours of rest in the previous 96 hours. They look at continuous hours of wakefulness. They rely on sleep science, which says 8 hours is best for humans. They look at the circadian rhythms. We have highs, we have lows, and they try to correlate these lows with casualties. And this pilot had been up awake since 0600, little sleep prior, doing turns. And, you know, if the NTSB had their way, they'd shut down the ports at around 0100 until 0500. So, what do you think of this probable cause? You know, we can sit here and kind of critique the ship handling aspect, the position of the ship, the use of the tugs. Well, soon after this incident, the NOBRA pilots changed their working rules to increase the time between turns, offer that sleep opportunity. So here is a situation of fit for duty.